Welcome back to class, guys. It is Monday, our last Monday together. That's super weird. I know it's exciting, but also kind of weird. It's just weird. There's just no better way to describe it. Anyway, so we are going to wrap up today in our video lesson. Just the last couple of topics in our chapter. Basically, so what's the deal? How does the evidence that we've talked about so far, as far as bullets and casings and trajectories and all of that stuff, how is that applied at crime scenes? How's that applied in law enforcement? How is it used? How's it managed? That kind of thing. And then we're going to talk about the 3 case studies at the end of the chapter. So Wednesday, we will do Zoom calls in the afternoon. I think I posted 1 and 3 o'clock. I'm just going to do 2 of them. So you can pick whichever one you want to come to. I started, instead of trying to split y'all in 3 groups, just going to pick 2. Those of you who like to get things done earlier in the day can come at 1 o'clock, and those of you who like to sleep in a little bit more can come at 3 o'clock. I really encourage you to come because we will discuss these case studies. We will go over the review questions, which I'll talk about more at the end of the video, and we will do a Kahoot together. So it'll be a great review because our final test is Friday. So let's talk about everything we've learned so far about ballistics. There's like internal, what they call internal ballistics, studying what's going on inside the gun and how how a gun works and how it leaves firing pin marks and ejector marks, and how as it goes down the barrel of the gun, it leaves the rifling and the barrel leaves striation marks, and that's like all the internal stuff. And then there's the external, everything from what happens when it actually hits its target and it goes through the body, what entrance wounds and exit wounds look like. How can we tell the difference between whether it was an entrance or exit? And then we talked about trajectories, which is terminal ballistics, where terminal is what it actually lands in. Sorry. The external is going to be all of your trajectories and, what angle was it shot from and what height was it shot from and all that good stuff. So there's a lot of different parts of ballistics, just like the blood chapter. And so how does all this information get organized? So you can see that there's obviously a lot of different databases. There's local and state and federal different databases, but around the year 2000, the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms, ATF, yeah, that's what it's short for. Anyway, they kind of combined and they did this National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, then NIBIN. I don't know if they call it that, but that's the way I say the acronym. So that was created in 2000, and they basically tried to combine everything. And so what they're actually putting in these databases is information about firearms that have been collected and projectiles, just firearms in general, so that they can, if they match, if one is collected from a crime scene or possibly, they can match it to, the characteristics of that type of gun. They're going to mention also anything that's been test fired. So any bullets or casings or guns found at a crime scene are going to be in this database, but anything that they have shot into either like a water tank or a gel tank, those bullets, they're going to have, or even the casings, because they might have ejector marks. Those are all going to be in the database too, because they may, at some point, could be a year down the road, that same gun is used in a different crime, possibly even in a different state, but maybe the same city. And they'll run it through and be like, wait a minute, we've seen this gun before, or at least we've seen a projectile from this gun before. And so then they can actually link crimes together. So they know at least the same gun was used. That doesn't mean it was the same person who pulled the trigger, because guns are bought and sold all the time. But they can at least know that it was what gun was used for the crime. So that's pretty interesting. So not just firearms and projectiles from crime scenes, but also the ones that they've test fired. And then the other thing that is collected in these databases are what they call firearm fingerprints. So far we've talked about actual fingerprints this year. Then we talked about a DNA profile, which is like your DNA fingerprint. So anytime it's a fingerprint, they're basically implying it's a one-of-a-kind unique situation. So in a fingerprint for in ballistics terms is usually it's talking about these the back of the casings, okay? And it's these three things that are mentioned here and also in the diagram that make up the fingerprints. Three distinct things. The first is the breech block mark, which we were looking at zoom, like really close-ups of it last week of these. And it was like either kind of stippled, I think is what it was called, or the circular ones. When they zoom in really, really closely, it's the marks that as the bullet slams in the back to the back, hits the breech block actually leaves an impression on the back, and that's usually marked here. Then you have the pin marks. Oh, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. The ejector marks, like this one has it here, but there could be little nicks every single time. This could even be an ejector mark. Who knows? This little nick right here, that could be an ejector mark. Any little nick that's made every single, and the way they can find that out is continuing to test fire the same gun and look at the casings and looking under microscopes and comparing them. I can see this gun, every time it ejects a casing, it leaves this same mark in the same exact spot. So it makes it as part of its fingerprint. And then the firing pin impression, the little impression made when the firing pin hits the back of the cartridge. So those three things, remember when we were doing fingerprints and you had to find at least 10 points of minutia that matched? So in order for them to like say this cartridge came from the same gun, they have to have at least 3 distinct markings in the exact same spots. So pretty detailed. So those are kinds of things that are going to be in the database. They're going to help you. They're going to help them match a bullet to a gun. They're going to help match bullets that, as I said earlier, like a gun that was used for multiple crimes. They can just say, we found a bullet. Like we were just talking about this earlier. We sat outside with our neighbors for a couple of hours and just enjoyed the evening and sat in our big social distancing circle and visited with our neighbors. And one of them was a young couple who just moved in next door, and we were telling them the story about the drive-by shooting at our house. And they're like, what? We're like, it's all good. It was just the wrong house. But all that to say, we were mentioning how the police took the bullet that was found in our living room, and we kind of wish we'd have saved it, but whatever. But it was probably important that that bullet be logged into a database because they may have matched it to other crimes. Like there could be other shootings in Arlington or anywhere else in the country that exact bullet markings match. And so who knows, maybe it just helped know that there's a gun out there that's been involved in multiple shootings. But that's not going to really help solve our crime because we don't know who pulled the trigger. Okay, let's see here. So it's actually there's a lot of really strict standards for this. Actually, it's a pretty cool, and I think I may have mentioned this when we were talking about ballistics last week. It's a pretty cool career if you're really into guns, and a lot of you guys are very knowledgeable about guns and you like to hunt and shoot and do things, and you're also kind of interested in crime and maybe helping solve crimes or things like that. So it's a really cool career that you can combine, but there's a lot of standards that are in place to make sure that there's not a lot of mistakes made. And all the different types of evidence we've talked about this year, we learned that early on, there were a lot of mistakes made when it came to hair, when it came to fingerprint, when it came to eyewitness, and even blood, and even DNA, until DNA got better. So early on with all of this forensic evidence, it wasn't used perfectly, but now there's so much more accuracy because there's a lot of really strict standards in place. So the Organization of Scientific Area Committees, and I don't know how to say that acronym, they basically are the one who coordinates all the standards to basically improve the reliability of forensic science evidence. So it's gotten better. It hasn't always been that way, right? Just like when we were talking about the Tylenol tampering case with the toxicology chapter. I think it was in one of our Zoom meetings, so you might have missed out on it. And I think I may have said it in one of my teaching videos, but we were saying how back in the 80s, we didn't have tamper-proof bottles because you just bought Tylenol, you opened it and you took it. But now we have all the the little whatever silver thing on top. You have to break some kind of a seal. So obviously as each year goes by, all these things are getting better and being improved, not just forensic science, but even just all kinds of safety standards. So ballistics, what the standards are going to be making sure is that how things are recovered from a crime scene, and they're pretty much going to be recover from a crime scene like the way we've talked about it for every type of evidence. You know, wearing gloves, packaging it specifically, and these can be packaged in baggies and labeled and having the chain of command filled out and the evidence stickers and like all of those things. You know, not putting multiple casings or multiple bullets in the same bag. They're each going to be bagged and tagged differently, guns separately, not putting anything together. And then they take like digital images of the cartridges. So they like appear the back of them so that they have a fingerprint, an image of it. And then they're also going to just take pictures of all of the bullets and all the guns, and pretty much they're going to record everything they possibly can. So the last thing I want to talk about are these. Oh, where's oh my goodness, I'm going to cry. My computer crashed earlier. Oh no. And when I restored it I thought I restored it to the most recent. I'm going to cry. Okay. It's okay. I thought I restored it to the most recent PowerPoint where I had put pictures of these people and put bullet points about every case, and I don't see it here. So I'm going to end this video and I'm going to see if I can recover that. And I'm going to make one more short video about the case studies so that you guys can get that information. Okay. Wish me luck.